Good morning, everyone. It is so good to see your faces. Hi. Good morning. Happy Sunday. Are you gonna join? I have a helper here today. No? Okay, never mind. I don't have a helper. Kids, it's so good to see you. How are you doing? Thumbs up? Thumbs up? Yeah? You guys, today is a very, very special Sunday. Do you remember when we used to do communion? When we were all meeting in church together, you would come out of your classes after this message was over, and we would come and we would get in line with our parents, and then someone would give us the bread and the grape juice, and we would dip it, and we would say, "This is the body and the blood of Christ." Do you remember that? We get to do that today all together, but it's not yet. So I'm going to tell you guys a story, and then I want you to come back and we're going to get to do this all together, and it's going to be really, really special. And I'm very, very excited to be doing this with you today. So are you guys ready for our story? I told this story a few weeks ago, so you may have heard it before, but we thought it would be really great to share the story again because it's talking about bread, and we're going to be eating bread together later. So here it is. This is the parable of the yeast. Jesus loved to tell his friends stories. I like to imagine Jesus and his friends sitting around a campfire at the end of the day, just before they all went to bed. They would be talking about the day and joking around. Then someone, maybe Andrew, would ask, "Jesus, tell us a story." "Sure, Andrew," Jesus would say. "What kind of story do you want?" "Tell us what the kingdom of heaven is like," he would say. "The kingdom of heaven is like yeast," said Jesus. "Yeast?" asked Thomas. "You mean the stuff that makes flour into bread dough? How can the kingdom of heaven be like that?" "Bear with me," said Jesus, "and I'll tell you a story. There was this woman in a village, and she had some yeast. She was kind of worried about her yeast. What if someone tries to take all of my yeast? How would I make bread for my family?" She thought and she worried. She worried and she thought. Then she had an idea. "I know, I will hide my yeast. Then it will be safe." But then she had another problem. Where should I hide my yeast? I could hide it in the cupboard, but then the mice might eat it. I could hide it in the well, but then it would get all soggy. I know, I will hide it in the flour bin. So that's what she did. She had a big barrel full of flour. It was about 60 pounds of flour, enough flour to last her family a very long time. The woman took her yeast and she buried it in the flour, and then she went off to bed. That's about where Jesus' story ends. But I've always wondered what happened afterwards, and here's what I imagine. When she woke up in the morning, she put her feet on the floor. Something was wrong. It felt all soft and squishy. She looked down, and what do you suppose she saw on the floor? The floor of her little room was covered with puffy, spongy bread dough. Bit by bit, the yeast had turned all that flour into bread dough. And when yeast turns flour into bread dough, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. The flour of the whole house was covered, or the floor, not the flour. The floor of the whole house was covered in bread dough. It had all come bubbling out of the flour barrel, and now it was everywhere. "Oh no," she said. "What am I going to do with all this bread dough?" In her village, there was one community oven where everyone did their baking. She picked up her biggest bowl and filled it with dough. She ran to the community oven and said, "Help! Can you shape this into loaves and bake it for me? Thanks." Then she ran like the wind to her neighbor's house. "Quick, bring your biggest bowl and take some of this dough to the oven." Her neighbor was confused. "Okay, but what are you going to do with all that bread?" she asked. "I'm giving it to you. I made way too much." So her neighbor took a big bowl of dough to the village oven too. But still, the house was full of bread dough. So she went from house to house and got all her neighbors to take big bowls of dough. When all the dough was gone from her house and everyone had great stacks of crusty brown loaves, the air was filled with the beautiful smell of fresh baked bread. Everyone stood around talking. "Hey," said someone, "let's have a feast." So each household brought something to share: meat, vegetables, soup, and they all ate together. They all talked about the wonderful accidental bread. They all laughed about the woman's house full of dough. They all had enough and more to share. And that is what the kingdom of heaven is like. Now, I wonder if you've ever seen how yeast turns flour into dough. I wonder what it felt like for the flour to turn into dough. I wonder what God puts in your life that might grow like yeast. And I wonder what God's yeast might grow you into. And I wonder, lastly, what you might do with all the good things that God grows in your life. Those are some good questions to be asking ourselves, huh? Okay, you guys, I will see you all later when we get to break bread and drink the wine together, or the juice. I love you guys. I'll see you next time, okay? Bye-bye.